"Don't stop," she whispered. "The rancher took it the wrong way, and that night changed everything." The wind whispered through the tall stalks of genetically engineered grass, bending and swaying like golden waves on a distant sea. On this quiet frontier, human rancher Eli Hunter moved carefully among the livestock pens, checking the energy barriers that kept the colony's animals safe. Eli had been working since dawn, repairing and strengthening the fields after a small breach yesterday. Sweat dripped from his forehead, and dust clung to his sunburned skin. He wiped it away with the back of his sleeve and squinted at the horizon, where the first hints of night were beginning to creep over the plains. The colony relied on his work to keep the animals, creatures vital to their food and resources, safe from both the harsh environment and the planet's unpredictable weather. As Eli tightened a panel on the containment field, a soft voice floated through the air. "Don't stop." Eli froze mid-motion, blinking at the direction of the sound. His mind, tired and foggy from hours of labor, registered the words incorrectly. He assumed it was encouragement, someone cheering him on in his lonely work. A small, amused grin tugged at the corners of his mouth. "Thanks," he muttered softly, glancing around. "I won't." The voice came again, slightly closer, softer but urgent. "Don't stop." This time Eli straightened, gripping the wrench tightly. He didn't see anyone nearby. Only the wind and the golden stalks of the engineered grass swaying gently. Still, he nodded, interpreting the words as support. "I hear you. I'll finish it." What Eli didn't know was that the voice belonged to Dr. Mara Voss, the colony's xenobiologist. Mara had been studying a strange cluster of luminous plants near the ranch. The wind had carried her warning to him, but Eli's tired mind misunderstood it entirely. She had seen a sudden shift in the sky, an approaching sandstorm that could destroy the pens if not secured, and had called out to alert him. Mara crept closer, trying to keep her footing on the uneven ground. "Eli." "The storm," she whispered, her voice almost drowned out by the whispering wind. Eli, still kneeling beside a barrier panel, gave a thumbs up and returned to work, smiling faintly. "I got it, don't worry." Mara's eyes widened, a mix of frustration and amusement dancing across her face. She realized that Eli had completely misunderstood her, but before she could clarify, the first gust of wind hit, carrying tiny grains of dust that made both of them squint. The air shifted suddenly, colder than the day had been, and the horizon blurred into a swirling haze. Mara's heart raced. She knew how dangerous the storms could be on Aridia. A strong gust could topple the barriers and send the livestock scattering across the plains. Eli, noticing the wind but not its significance, adjusted the panel on the fence with practiced hands. "The wind's picking up," he muttered. "Good thing these barriers are reinforced. They can handle a little breeze." Mara stepped closer, her hands raised slightly to gesture urgency. "Eli, that's not a little breeze. You need to secure the pens now." Eli turned toward her, still smiling, and gave another nod. "Don't worry, I've done this 100 times. We'll be fine." But Mara's eyes tracked the swirling clouds in the distance, growing darker and heavier by the minute. She grabbed a rope from her bag and started tying it across one of the weaker panels, hoping Eli would notice. Eli, meanwhile, kept tightening bolts and adjusting the energy barrier settings, still thinking she was supporting him. The misunderstanding created a strange rhythm between them, both working in sync yet unaware of the real danger. The first sharp gust of the storm hit, rattling the pens and sending a shiver down Eli's spine. Dust and fine sand whipped across his face, making him blink rapidly. The livestock stirred, lowing softly, sensing the change in the air. "Eli." "Stop tightening the panels and secure the pens," Mara shouted, finally losing patience. She stepped closer and grabbed his arm. Eli yelped and nearly dropped his wrench. "Whoa, Mara, you scared me. I thought you were cheering me on." Mara's eyebrows shot up in disbelief. "Cheering you on? I was warning you about the storm. Look at the sky." Eli followed her gaze and finally saw the thick wall of sand moving toward them. His stomach tightened. That's a lot more than a breeze. They moved quickly, working together to secure each panel, each gate, and each containment unit. The storm's roar grew louder, a deep, constant rumble that seemed to shake the ground itself. But Eli and Mara's teamwork shone through. Human persistence and clever improvisation allowed them to use whatever tools and materials they had on hand. Mara suggested using the research tents as temporary windbreaks, while Eli rigged the energy barriers to absorb some of the storm's force. Hours passed in a blur of dust, wind, and shouted instructions. Yet, despite the chaos, Eli and Mara managed to keep the livestock calm, using soothing tones and careful movements. The animals, sensing the humans' control, stayed closer to the pens rather than bolting into the storm. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the worst of the sandstorm passed. The air was thick with dust, and the golden plains were muted under a veil of gray. The livestock were safe, though some pens had minor damage. Eli and Mara collapsed onto the ground, exhausted but triumphant. Eli looked at Mara, a sheepish grin on his face. I really did misunderstand you, huh? Mara laughed softly, brushing dust from her hair. A little, but we survived, that's what matters, and maybe next time you'll actually listen before assuming. Eli chuckled, nodding. Fair enough, you saved the ranch tonight. Mara shook her head. We saved it together. They sat in silence for a few minutes, listening to the settling wind and the soft movements of the livestock. The storm had reminded them of the fragility of life on Aridia, but also of the strength of human ingenuity and cooperation. Every bolt tightened, every rope secured, every clever improvisation had kept the colony alive. As night fell, the first stars appeared in the sky, tiny pinpricks of light shining through the lingering dust. Eli and Mara gazed upward, catching glimpses of distant planets and moons visible in Aridia's clear atmosphere. There was a beauty in the harshness of this world, a challenge that humans seemed to thrive on. Eli finally broke the silence. You know, maybe I should start listening more carefully. Could save me from panicking next time. Mara smiled. And maybe I should use simpler words, less chance of misinterpretation. They laughed softly, the sound mingling with the faint calls of the livestock. For a brief moment, the ranch felt like a sanctuary, a place where human determination, adaptability, and simple understanding could overcome even the most unpredictable challenges. As they walked back toward the main building, Eli carried the tools, and Mara carried the rope and a small notebook full of her observations. The night was calm now, but they knew that life on this distant planet would always be full of surprises. Still, with patience, cooperation, and a little humor, humanity could face whatever Aridia had in store. And though the misunderstanding had caused a bit of confusion, it had also reminded them both that human ingenuity, kindness, and teamwork were the true shields against any storm. Eli glanced at Mara one last time before heading inside. Next time maybe we should just yell storm instead of cryptic phrases. Mara laughed again. Agreed, very clear instructions, no ambiguity. With the livestock safe, the barriers reinforced, and the night calm, the ranchers finally allowed themselves to rest, knowing that the morning would bring new challenges, discoveries, and perhaps a few more misunderstandings. But they also knew that as humans, they had the ability to face anything together, and turn even a misheard warning into a story of survival and ingenuity. The morning after the storm broke with a gentle hush. The sun rose pale and hesitant, filtered through the lingering dust that hung like a veil over the plains of Aridia. Eli Hunter and Dr. Mara Voss stepped out of the ranch building, stretching their stiff limbs and blinking against the soft light. The storm had passed, but it left the land altered, scattered grass, tilted pens, and a trail of dust marking the paths the livestock had wandered during the gusts. Eli squinted toward the pens. Not too bad, he said, his voice tinged with relief. A few panels bent, some fences loose, but everything survived. That's more than I expected. Mara nodded, her gaze sweeping across the plains. Yeah, but I saw some unusual readings on the sensors after the storm. The energy fields fluctuated strangely. I think it's worth investigating. Eli raised an eyebrow, curious but cautious. Fluctuations? Like what? Mara pulled out a small handheld scanner and pointed to the display. See, the readings spiked right when the storm hit. It could be something natural, but it doesn't look like anything we've seen before. Maybe an energy pulse from the planet itself. Eli crouched beside her, studying the screen. The numbers danced and flickered in ways he didn't fully understand, but the problem-solving part of his brain already kicked into action. Well, we can't just leave it unexplored. Who knows, it might help the colony, or it might cause trouble if we ignore it. Mara smiled. Exactly, so we investigate together. They set out across the plains, moving carefully around patches of flattened grass and stray animals. The storm had left the land more unpredictable than usual, with uneven soil and hidden dips. Yet humans were nothing if not adaptable, and both Eli and Mara moved with a careful balance of speed and caution. As they walked, Eli glanced at Mara. You know, last night I really underestimated you. That storm was no joke. Mara laughed softly. You underestimated the planet too, and me, I guess. Eli grinned, scratching his head. Maybe both, but we survived, that's what counts. The duo approached the area Mara had been studying before the storm, a strange grove of glowing flora. The plants emitted a soft, pulsing light, like small lanterns scattered across the ground. The storm had stirred the air around them, and some of the glowing leaves fluttered weakly, as if sighing from the night's ordeal. Mara knelt near one of the plants, holding the scanner above it. The energy signature is coming from these, she said. They weren't as active before the storm. Something woke them up. Eli leaned closer, careful not to touch the delicate leaves. Woke them up, he asked. Like alive. Not alive in the way we think, Mara replied. But the storm seems to have energized them somehow. They respond to energy fluctuations, maybe even magnetic fields. I think they could be harnessed if we study them carefully. Eli's eyes lit up. Harnessed. You mean power for the colony? Potentially, Mara said, smiling at his excitement. But we need to understand the patterns first. We can't just grab and use it. That would be reckless. As they examined the plants, Eli noticed a soft vibration beneath his boots. The ground pulsed faintly, almost like a heartbeat. He pointed it out. Mara's brow furrowed. Interesting. The plants are reacting to something beneath the surface. Maybe some kind of natural energy vein, or something we haven't discovered yet. They spent the next few hours carefully documenting the plants, scanning the energy fields, and marking safe pathways across the uneven terrain. Human curiosity pushed them forward, even when the work was tiring. The sun climbed higher, warming their backs, and Eli began to feel the satisfying ache of hard labor, not exhaustion, but the kind that comes from solving a problem with your own hands. Suddenly, a small cluster of the glowing plants began pulsing more rapidly. The light intensified, bathing Eli and Mara in a soft, golden glow. Look at that, Mara whispered, eyes wide. They're reacting to us. Eli tilted his head, intrigued. To us? Why? Mara adjusted the scanner. I think they're sensitive to movement and energy. The storm might have activated a dormant trait. These plants, they respond to stimuli. We might be able to learn to communicate with them, or at least predict their reactions. Eli crouched beside one of the taller plants, gently waving his hand near its leaves. The pulses quickened, glowing brighter with each movement. That's incredible, they actually react to us. Mara nodded, excitement sparking in her eyes. Humans are adaptable, Eli. We find patterns, understand systems, and solve problems. These plants, they're just another system waiting to be understood. The discovery was thrilling, but they knew time was limited. The storm had weakened some of the energy barriers around the pens, and the livestock needed to be checked before the next gust hit. They carefully marked the plants' positions on their maps, noting which ones reacted most strongly and began making their way back. As they walked, Eli glanced at the horizon. Dark clouds were forming again, though much smaller than the storm from the night before. "Looks like Iridia isn't done testing us yet," he muttered. Mara chuckled softly. "It never really is." Back at the ranch, they inspected the pens. Eli used his experience to reinforce weak spots, while Mara monitored the energy barriers and checked the sensors. Together, they worked like a well-oiled machine. Eli's practical skills complemented Mara's scientific expertise. Their combined efforts ensured the animals remained calm and safe. By mid-afternoon, the ranch was fully secured. The livestock were grazing peacefully, their soft hums and calls filling the air. Eli and Mara sat on a low wall near the pens, catching their breath and taking in the calm that followed the storm. Eli picked up a small device Mara had been using. "So, these plants. You think they could actually help us with energy for the colony?" Mara nodded. "Yes, but slowly. We need to study the energy patterns, understand how they react. If we're careful, we might create a new sustainable source of energy. Something uniquely Iridian and powered by the planet itself." Eli grinned. "That would be amazing. Humanity on Iridia, making a new kind of power source from a storm-woken plant. Never thought I'd see the day." Mara laughed, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Humans are resilient, Eli. We adapt, we learn, and we create. That's what makes us remarkable. Even in the middle of a storm, we find a way forward." They spent the rest of the afternoon collecting samples, taking readings, and documenting their findings. Eli discovered that moving the plants slightly, changing the angle of sunlight, or even clapping softly near them caused small fluctuations in their glow. Mara hypothesized that these reactions could be amplified into a form of energy modulation for the colony's systems. As evening approached, the sky shifted from pale orange to deep violet, the first stars blinking through the thinning dust. The ranch glowed faintly with the energy of the livestock pens, and the distant hills shimmered under the planet's twin moons. Eli and Mara stood together, looking out across the plains. "Tomorrow," Mara said quietly, "we start experimenting with ways to use this energy. Carefully. No risks, but we could change the colony's future." Eli nodded, feeling a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. "One step at a time, but yeah, we really could." For a moment, the world felt infinite, full of possibilities. A misheard phrase, a storm, and a curious plant had led to a discovery that neither had expected. The night air was calm, the ranch safe, and the stars above promised more mysteries to come. Eli and Mara returned to the main building, carrying their tools and samples, talking quietly about what they had seen. They laughed over their earlier misunderstandings, shared ideas for tomorrow's experiments, and made plans for more careful observation. The storm had tested them, but it had also revealed something extraordinary, a chance to harness the unusual energy of Iridia itself. As they settled in for the night, Eli looked at Mara. "You know, I think the storm gave us more than trouble. It gave us a chance to discover something amazing." Mara smiled, turning toward him. "Exactly. And it all started with a small misunderstanding and some very human persistence." Outside, the stars twinkled over the plains, a quiet witness to the resilience, ingenuity, and curiosity that defined humanity. And inside, two humans dreamed of what they could achieve on this strange, beautiful planet. The next morning, the sun rose with a soft golden glow, illuminating the plains of Iridia in a calm, almost serene light. Eli Hunter stretched his arms and yawned, savoring the rare quiet after the storm. The livestock were grazing peacefully, their soft calls and hums filling the air. The ranch looked almost untouched, yet Eli knew better. The storm had left subtle changes in the terrain and weakened some hidden spots in the pens. Mara Voss joined him outside, her hands full of notebooks and scanning equipment. She looked excited, her eyes shining with curiosity. "Good morning, Eli," she said, her voice lively. "I stayed up last night analyzing the sensor data. I think there's something unusual, something we didn't see before the storm." Eli frowned slightly, glancing at her with interest. "Unusual? Like what? Another storm on the horizon?" Mara shook her head. "No, not weather. Look at this." She tapped on her handheld scanner and the display showed flickering pulses of light and fluctuating energy lines. "These signals, they weren't here before the storm. They're faint but steady. Something is emitting energy across the plains." Eli leaned closer, squinting at the screen. "Energy signals from what? Rocks? Animals?" "That's the mystery," Mara replied. "I don't know. But I think it's connected to the plants we discovered yesterday. Their energy readings spiked when the storm hit, and now these signals appear." Eli rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "Well, we can't ignore it. If it's energy, it could help the colony. Or at least it's worth exploring." Mara smiled. "Exactly, so we investigate together." With their equipment ready, Eli and Mara set off across the plains again. They moved carefully, mindful of uneven ground left by the storm and patches of soft sand that could trip the livestock if they wandered nearby. The twin moons of Iridia hung faintly in the sky, remnants of the night, casting a cool light over the landscape. The energy signals seemed to grow stronger as they approached the grove of glowing plants. The pulses were faint but rhythmic, like a heartbeat, almost as if the planet itself was alive. Mara knelt near the plants, raising her scanner to record the data. "These plants," she murmured, "they're responding to something below the surface, something alive or at least energetic. I think there's a natural source of energy beneath the ground, and the plants are acting like indicators." Eli crouched beside her, brushing dust from his sleeves. "Indicators? You mean they're like warning signs?" "Yes," Mara said. "Or maybe even a communication system of sorts. The storm activated them, and now they're reacting to the energy pulses beneath the ground. It's like they're alive, but in a very different way than we are." Eli nodded slowly, his curiosity piqued. "Well, humans are good at figuring out patterns. Let's find out what they're trying to tell us." The duo carefully moved across the grove, observing which plants reacted more strongly to their presence. Mara adjusted her scanner to record the pulse patterns, while Eli marked the positions of the plants on a makeshift map. The glowing flora flickered in response to the scanner's soft energy emissions, and even a gentle hand wave made some of the pulses intensify. "See that?" Mara whispered, pointing to a small cluster of plants. Their glow brightened sharply, and the pulses on the scanner spiked. "They're responding directly to the energy waves beneath the surface." Eli knelt beside them, studying the plants. "So, if we can figure out the pattern, maybe we can harness it. Maybe we can even predict the pulses and use the energy for the colony." Mara nodded, her eyes alight with excitement. "Yes, but carefully. We need to understand the system completely before trying anything. These plants are delicate. If we make a mistake, we could disrupt the signals entirely." They spent hours experimenting, carefully observing and recording. Mara adjusted the scanner's sensitivity while Eli moved around, testing how different motions affected the pulses. Slowly, they began to notice a pattern. The energy pulses beneath the ground increased slightly whenever they performed deliberate movements, clapped softly, or even spoke in gentle tones. "It's like they're responding to human activity," Eli said, amazed. "Almost like interaction," Mara smiled. "Exactly. Humans have always been able to sense patterns in nature, adapt, and learn. That's what makes us special. These plants, they might just be another system we can learn to communicate with." As the afternoon sun climbed higher, the sky grew hazy from leftover dust in the air. Eli and Mara took a short break, sitting on a large flat rock near the grove. The energy signals continued to pulse rhythmically beneath the surface, faint but unmistakable. Eli watched the glowing plants and chuckled softly. You know, this is kind of amazing. A storm brings chaos, and suddenly we're discovering a hidden energy system that might change everything for the colony. Mara nodded, her eyes still on the scanner. That's life on Iridia. Unpredictable, challenging, and full of surprises. Humans adapt, we learn, we create solutions. That's why we survive here. After their break, they continued their exploration, following the faint signals that stretched across the plains. The pulses became stronger as they approached a ridge not far from the grove. Mara raised the scanner higher and the reading spiked suddenly. Look at that, she whispered. The energy source is beneath the ridge. We need to be careful, it could be unstable. Eli nodded. Careful, got it. Let's find a safe way down and see what's causing it. They made their way slowly, using rocks and plants as guides, keeping their weight balanced. The ridge overlooked a shallow valley, partially obscured by dust and the remnants of the storm. The energy pulses were strongest here, almost like the heartbeat of the planet itself. Mara set the scanner down and knelt, taking careful notes. It's beautiful, she said softly. The energy is consistent, rhythmic, almost like a natural pulse. I think it could be harnessed, but we need to understand the flow first. It's like learning the language of the planet. Eli crouched beside her, eyes wide with wonder. Learning the language of the planet, that's something I never thought I'd hear on a ranch. But it feels right, like humans belong here figuring this out step by step, Mara smiled. Exactly. Humans are curious, adaptable, and patient. That's how we survive anywhere, even on a strange world like Iridia. They spent the rest of the day studying the valley, observing how the glowing plants reacted to the pulses. Mara hypothesized that the storm had shifted the energy patterns underground, activating a dormant system. Eli tested different interactions, moving his hands near the plants, tapping lightly on the ground and even speaking softly. Each action produced a measurable change in the pulse patterns. This is incredible, Eli said. We could guide the energy somehow, maybe even store it for the colony. We just need to figure out the pattern. Mara nodded, her eyes alight with excitement. Yes, and if we do, we could provide a renewable energy source that's completely natural to Iridia. Humans adapting, learning, and creating, once again proving that we belong here. As evening approached, the sun dipped low, painting the sky with streaks of pink and purple. Eli and Mara stood at the edge of the ridge, looking down at the glowing valley below. The plants pulsed softly, synchronized with the energy signals beneath the ground. The rhythm was hypnotic, almost calming. Eli took a deep breath. You know, last night the storm almost ruined everything. And now look at this. A new discovery, new possibilities. It's like the planet itself is teaching us. Mara smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. It is, and we're listening. That's what humans do. We learn, we adapt, and we grow. This is just the beginning. They carefully packed up their equipment, making sure not to disturb the delicate plants. As they made their way back to the ranch, Eli glanced at Mara. Tomorrow, we start experimenting with ways to harness the energy. Step by step, Mara nodded. Yes, carefully and together. Humans adapt, remember? Eli laughed softly. Right, humans adapt. The twin moons rose over the plains as they returned to the ranch, casting long shadows across the pens and grazing livestock. The night was calm, but the energy beneath the ground pulsed steadily, like a secret heartbeat of the planet. Eli and Mara knew that with patience, observation, and human ingenuity, they could unlock something extraordinary. As they entered the main building, Eli glanced back at the glowing valley in the distance. This planet, it's tough, unpredictable, and strange. But humans can make it work. We can survive, adapt, and even thrive here. Mara smiled, closing the scanner and placing it on the table. Exactly. And tomorrow we start learning the language of Iridia, one pulse at a time. Outside, the stars sparkled over the plains, the soft glow of the plants visible in the valley below. The planet had many secrets, but humans had the curiosity, patience, and persistence to uncover them. And as Eli and Mara settled in for the night, they knew that their discovery could change the colony's future and prove once again that human ingenuity could thrive even in the most unexpected places. The next day began with a soft, amber light spilling over the plains of Aridia. The storm from days before was long gone, leaving only traces of its power in bent grass and a few tilted fence panels. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of the glowing plants that had captured Eli and Mara's attention. Eli stretched and rubbed his arms. "I can't believe we're actually going to try harnessing energy from those plants," he said, his voice half excited, half nervous. "Feels strange but amazing at the same time." Mara grinned, checking her notebooks and scanning devices. "It's the perfect next step. We've observed the patterns, recorded the pulses, and now it's time to experiment. Carefully, of course, one step at a time." They left the ranch, carrying their instruments, notebooks, and a few portable energy storage devices designed to capture and stabilize small amounts of the plant energy. The twin moons of Aridia were faint in the sky, casting a pale light over the plains. The glowing plants pulsed softly in rhythm with the energy signals beneath the ground. Eli glanced at Mara. "Do you really think this will work? I mean, capturing energy from plants is one thing, but controlling it." Mara nodded. "Humans adapt, Eli. That's what we do. Observation, pattern recognition, trial and error. That's how we survive on this planet. These plants respond to stimuli. If we understand the pattern, we can guide the energy into the devices." The grove where the strongest signals were detected lay just ahead. The plants glowed brighter in the morning light, their pulses syncing subtly with the energy beneath the surface. Mara carefully laid out her equipment, connecting small energy conduits to each device. Eli followed her lead, anchoring the conduits and ensuring that the connections were stable. "Okay," Mara said, crouching near the first plant. "Let's start small. Gentle movement, soft sounds, nothing abrupt." Eli nodded, stepping carefully, his eyes on the glowing plant. He raised a hand slowly, waving it near the plant. The plant's pulse intensified, and a faint surge flowed into the connected device. Mara watched the readings on her scanner and nodded with satisfaction. "See, that's it," she whispered. "It responds to movement. Now let's try soft sounds." Eli clapped gently twice. The plant's glow brightened further and the device hummed faintly. Mara scribbled notes quickly, her eyes sparkling. "This is incredible," Eli said, his voice filled with wonder. "We're actually channeling energy from the plant," Mara smiled. "Exactly, and it's all because we observed, adapted, and learned. Human ingenuity at work." They continued experimenting, testing different movements, gentle tapping on the ground and soft spoken words. Each action caused measurable changes in the plant's pulses, and the devices captured the energy efficiently. Slowly, they began to understand the patterns. Specific sequences of movement and sound could amplify the energy output without damaging the plants. Hours passed like this. Eli moved, Mara monitored, and together they refined their methods. The sun climbed higher, but neither of them noticed. They were absorbed in the experiment, learning from every pulse, every flicker of light. Finally, Mara stepped back and pointed at one of the devices. "Look at that. Stable energy flow, consistent output. If we scale this carefully, we could provide power for the colony using nothing but the planet's natural energy system and these plants." Eli's eyes widened. "You mean sustainable energy, right here on Aridia?" Mara nodded. "Yes, and it's completely renewable. As long as we respect the plants and understand the rhythm, we can use this safely." Eli grinned, feeling a surge of pride. "Humans really can adapt to anything, huh? Even a planet with storms, glowing plants, and energy pulses underground. We just need patience and curiosity. As the afternoon passed, Eli and Mara began testing more advanced techniques. They experimented with arranging multiple plants in patterns to increase energy output. Gentle claps and movement sequences triggered synchronized pulses across several plants, and the devices recorded a significant increase in energy capture. "This is working better than I expected," Eli said, moving between the plants. "It's like the plants respond to us as a group, not just individually," Mara nodded. "Exactly. Humans working together can influence the system more than one person alone. Cooperation and understanding, it's all part of our survival advantage." By evening, they had refined a system that allowed them to capture energy safely and efficiently. Mara's scanner displayed the rhythmic pulses of the plants, flowing into the devices and stabilizing at a consistent level. The valley glowed softly in the twilight, a quiet testament to human curiosity, patience, and ingenuity. Eli and Mara sat on a flat rock, exhausted but exhilarated. The twin moons of Aridia reflected off the glowing plants, and the air carried the faint, pleasant scent of the valley's flora. "You know," Eli said quietly, "last week, a misheard phrase almost ruined everything. And now look at this. We've found a way to harness energy from the planet itself." Mara laughed softly. "It's funny how life works. Misunderstandings, storms, curiosity, all leading to discovery. Humans have a way of turning challenges into opportunities." Eli nodded. "And that's why we survive. That's why humans thrive. No matter how strange or unpredictable a place is, we find a way forward." Night fell, and the valley glowed brighter under the twin moons. The energy system they had set up hummed faintly, a soft, steady pulse in harmony with the plants and the underground signals. Eli and Mara walked among the plants, observing, adjusting, and refining their methods. Every step, every movement, every gentle sound influenced the system. It was a delicate balance, requiring patience, focus, and cooperation. Hours later, Mara glanced at Eli with a tired but satisfied smile. "We did it. Stable energy, safe system, and we understand the patterns. This is a real breakthrough for the colony." Eli nodded, his face reflecting awe and pride. "And it all started with a simple misheard warning, a storm, and a bit of curiosity." Mara laughed softly. "Yes, humans are remarkable that way. We observe, adapt, and create solutions, even when the odds are against us. That's the core of who we are." They packed up their equipment carefully, making sure the plants were unharmed and the energy system remained stable. The valley glowed faintly behind them as they returned to the ranch. The livestock grazed peacefully, unaware of the incredible discovery happening just beyond their pens. Inside the ranch building, Mara reviewed the day's data while Eli cleaned the conduits and devices. Every measurement, every observation was carefully recorded, forming the basis for future experiments. Eli glanced at Mara. "Tomorrow, we'll start scaling this, step by step. Humans adapt, remember." Mara smiled, her eyes reflecting the soft glow from the valley outside. "Exactly. And with patience, observation, and teamwork, we can make this work for the entire colony." As they settled down for the night, the soft hum of the captured energy filled the building. It was a quiet, almost magical sound, a reminder of what humans could accomplish through ingenuity, cooperation, and a willingness to learn. Outside, the glowing valley pulsed rhythmically, a silent partner in their discovery. Eli lay back, thinking about the storm, the plants, and the energy pulses. "Humans, we really can survive anywhere," he whispered. "Even a strange, unpredictable planet like Aridia, and we can thrive if we work together." Mara, already half asleep, murmured, "Yes, humans adapt. We find patterns, we create solutions. That's our strength." The night stretched on, calm and quiet, yet alive with energy. Eli and Mara slept with the knowledge that the valley outside held not just glowing plants, but the promise of a better, sustainable future for the colony. Their discovery was just the beginning, a testament to human curiosity, patience, and the ability to turn challenges into opportunities. Outside, Iridia's twin moons reflected off the plains, casting a pale light over the ranch and the glowing valley. The night was calm, peaceful, and full of potential, and humans, as always, were ready to meet it. The morning on Iridia arrived with a soft glow, illuminating the plains in shades of gold and rose. Eli Hunter stepped outside the ranch, stretching his arms and taking a deep breath of the crisp, clean air. The livestock grazed quietly, their calm hums a comforting soundtrack to the peaceful morning. The storm from earlier days was long gone, leaving only the soft traces of its power in bent stalks of grass and patches of disturbed soil. Beside him, Mara Voss carried her scanner and notebook, excitement dancing in her eyes. "Today," she said, smiling, "we take the next step. We scale up the energy system. The plants responded well yesterday, but the colony could really benefit if we can stabilize larger amounts of energy." Eli nodded, feeling both nervous and eager. "Scaling it up, it sounds huge. But if humans can adapt to storms, strange animals, and alien plants, I guess we can handle this too." Mara laughed softly. "Exactly. Humans adapt. That's how we survive and thrive." They moved across the plains toward the glowing valley, where the plants pulsed rhythmically, their gentle light reflecting off the twin moons still faint in the sky. Yesterday's experiments had taught them the basics. Small movements, soft sounds, and careful observation could influence the plants and guide their energy into portable devices. Today, they aimed to connect multiple devices simultaneously, capturing more energy for the colony. Eli knelt by one of the stronger plants, carefully anchoring the conduits that would link it to the devices. Mara adjusted her scanner, monitoring the pulse patterns. "Steady," she said. "We don't want to overwhelm the plants. Remember, the key is rhythm and balance." Eli nodded. "Balance, got it." They began the experiment slowly. Eli waved his hands gently near the plants while Mara tapped softly on the ground in a precise pattern. The glowing flora responded immediately, pulses intensifying and spreading to neighboring plants. The devices hummed as energy flowed into them, stabilizing quickly. "Look at that," Mara whispered, her eyes wide with awe. "The energy is steady, stronger than yesterday, and the plants are responding perfectly." Eli grinned. "Humans adapting to the planet again. I love it." Hours passed as they expanded the system, carefully linking more plants and adjusting their movements and sounds. They discovered that even small changes in their rhythm could influence the energy flow, amplifying it or calming it as needed. With patience, they were able to create a network of energy flowing from the glowing plants into the devices, enough to supply part of the colony's power needs. "This is incredible," Eli said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "We're literally turning Iridia's natural energy into something usable for humans. That's amazing." Mara nodded, her eyes scanning the data. "It's a testament to observation, patience, and teamwork. Humans have a way of understanding patterns and systems that no other species can. That's why we survive, why we thrive, even in strange, unpredictable worlds." As the afternoon sun climbed high, the colony's small buildings in the distance began to gleam in the golden light. Eli and Mara could see the faint shimmer of energy flowing from the valley into storage units near the ranch. It was subtle, almost magical, but it was real. "Humans," Eli said thoughtfully, "we really can adapt anywhere. Even a planet that throws storms, strange plants, and underground energy pulses at us. We just need curiosity, patience, and cooperation." Mara smiled. "Exactly, and that's why humanity will thrive here, not because the planet is easy, but because humans rise to the challenge." They continued their work late into the afternoon, refining the connections and testing the energy output. The glowing plants seemed to respond almost as if they understood, their pulses synchronized with the devices. Mara hypothesized that the storm had shifted the underground energy patterns, activating a natural system that had always existed. Humans, through observation and careful interaction, were now able to integrate with it. Eli watched the plants and smiled. It's like the planet is teaching us. If we listen carefully, we can learn from it and make our lives better. That's kind of poetic, isn't it? Mara laughed softly. Yes, poetic and practical at the same time. Observation, adaptation, and cooperation. That's what makes humans remarkable. As evening approached, the twin moons rose fully, casting their pale light over the valley. The glowing plants pulsed gently, a rhythm that now matched the energy flowing into the colony's storage devices. Eli and Mara stood together, watching the valley light up like a quiet, living network of energy. You know, Eli said quietly, a few days ago, a misheard warning nearly caused chaos. And now, look at this. Humans turned confusion into discovery. Humans turned a storm into opportunity. Mara nodded. Yes, and that's why we survive. Not because the challenges go away, but because humans rise above them. We adapt, we learn, we create solutions, and we work together. That's our strength. They spent the night recording data, testing the energy system, and ensuring that it remained stable. The valley glowed softly under the twin moons, the pulses of energy like a heartbeat connecting the planet and the humans who lived on it. Eli and Mara took turns resting while the other monitored the devices, each trusting the other completely. By late night, they finally allowed themselves to sit quietly, taking in the view. The glowing valley stretched across the plains, the energy flowing steadily, and the colony buildings faintly shimmering in the distance. Humans had not just survived a storm, they had adapted, learned, and discovered a sustainable energy system that could support their life on Iridia. Eli glanced at Mara. We did it. The colony can thrive now thanks to this, and we figured it out together. Mara smiled, her eyes reflecting the gentle glow of the plants. Yes, and the beauty of it is, we didn't just survive, we grew. Humans always find a way forward, even when the challenges are hard and the path is unclear. Eli laughed softly. Who knew a simple misheard warning could lead to something this big? Mara chuckled. Life is full of surprises. The key is noticing them, learning from them, and using them wisely. The next morning, the colony woke to a quiet hum of energy flowing into the buildings. Lights were brighter, small machines operated smoothly, and the temperature control systems worked perfectly. Humans had turned an alien planet's energy into a life-supporting system, a testament to observation, patience, and human ingenuity. The colony leaders came to see Eli and Mara in the glowing valley. They were impressed by the steady flow of energy and the efficient system the duo had created. This is remarkable, one of them said. You've discovered a safe, renewable energy source that can sustain the entire colony. Truly extraordinary work. Eli shrugged, smiling. We just observed, experimented, and adapted. Humans do that naturally. Mara nodded. Exactly. Humans survive, humans thrive, and humans find solutions when faced with challenges. That's why we belong here on Iridia, even when the planet seems impossible. The leaders left, leaving Eli and Mara alone in the glowing valley. The twin moons reflected off the energy conduits and the pulsing plants, casting long shadows that danced like living creatures. Eli sat on a rock, looking at Mara. You know, this night, this discovery, it changes everything, he said softly. Not just for the colony, but it shows what humans can do. We adapt, we create, we thrive. Mara smiled, placing her hand on his shoulder. Yes, and we'll continue to learn from this planet. Humans have always faced challenges, and we've always risen above them. Iridia is just another chapter in that story. They stayed in the valley until the early hours of the morning, watching the steady glow of the plants and the rhythmic pulse of energy beneath the ground. The world was quiet, alive with possibility, and full of the subtle promise of human achievement. By sunrise, they returned to the ranch, carrying notebooks full of data and hearts full of pride. The livestock grazed quietly, the pens were secure, and the colony's buildings shimmered faintly with captured energy. Humans had turned chaos into opportunity, misunderstanding into discovery, and storms into advancement. Eli looked around the ranch, smiling. We did it. Humans belong here, even on this strange planet. We adapt, we create, and we thrive. That's who we are. Mara nodded, her eyes reflecting the early morning light. And this is just the beginning. Aridia has many secrets, and humans are ready to discover them all. As they settled down for a well-earned rest, the twin moons slowly faded, and the sun rose fully over the glowing plains. The energy system pulsed quietly, a living testament to human curiosity, ingenuity, and teamwork. Eli and Mara had turned a misheard warning and a fierce storm into an extraordinary discovery that would support the colony for years to come. Humans had survived, adapted, and thrived on Aridia, and the story of their ingenuity would continue, one discovery at a time.